So just a couple housekeeping things. If you have questions or anything you'd like to bring up, I have a chat box here that I'll keep my eye on. So if you have any questions, feel free to put questions in the chat. I also, throughout the meeting, I'm going to plan on asking if there are questions and take a quick break and take a pulse from all you folks that are listening in. And then there is time for questions at the end as well too. So even though this is not the most ideal way to have a parent orientation meeting, trying to do our best to kind of work through this. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. So my name is Josh Kluge. I'm president of River Falls Youth Football. Actually joined the organization on the board at least 2 or 3 years ago, and was actually worked with the board and took over the board as president to transition the league from flag football, from tackle football to flag football. So those that are maybe familiar, a few years back, it was actually tackle football for grades 3rd through 6th. And then 2 or 3 seasons ago, we actually transitioned to all flag football for 1st through 6th grade. So there's a few different reasons why we did that. Obviously there's the ongoing discussion about injuries and concussions, especially with younger kids. And so that was a big part of it. But really the other part of it, and this is what I wanted to share next, is really what we had decided as a board, and we decided, kind of working with Coach Crail, who's on the youth football board, is what is our goal? Our goal at the end of the day is to help kids have a passion for the game of football, enhance their knowledge and their skills in football, and just give them a fun experience to play ball with their friends and make new friends, and just keep it as simple as that. So that is the goal of River Falls Youth Football. For those of you that are new to the program, welcome to River Falls Youth Football. And I actually asked my son, and actually let me take a quick step back. So I actually have 3 kids. My wife and I have 3 kids. So my oldest is going into 5th grade, so he'll be playing at the 5th and 6th grade flag football level. My daughter, Anna, is going into 2nd grade, and she'll be playing actually her 1st year of flag football this year. And so I'm actually going to be helping coach her team. And then my youngest, Maddie, she's going into 4K. At this point, she's very much into fairies and unicorns. We'll see if she eventually likes football one of these days. But so anyway, that's my family. And I asked my son, who's now been doing youth football for a number of years, for those families, for those kids that are new to the program, what do they need to know? And this is his quote. He said, "You should let them know that it meaning River Falls Youth Football, isn't for a big trophy or millions of dollars. It's for fun and competing for fun." So that's again ultimately our goal, what we're looking to accomplish here. In the parent meeting, parent orientation meeting, just a kind of a quick overview of what we're going to cover. Obviously, I covered the history of kind of where we've been, where we are today, what we're all about. I'm going to talk through your resources, whether that's the resources with your coaches, resources that are available on our website, or the grade directors and board members shown here. Obviously, we'll spend a good amount of time talking about our COVID-19 mitigation strategies and efforts that we're putting into place for 2020. So I'm going to talk a lot about communication and expectations that we have of the coaches, but also the parents and the kids, of how we should be approaching this upcoming season. And then last but not least, we're going to have some kind of takeaway items that if you forget 90% of what you hear tonight, at least there's a handful of things that you can walk away from, hopefully remembering. So this is a portion, or a large portion, of the River Falls Youth Football Board. And the reason why I'm sharing this is I want to make it clear of just all the different roles within youth football and the way that we have it set up. So like I said, I oversee River Falls Youth Football, and I also do all of the communications and all the work on that piece of it coming up from the organization itself. But then we also have it broken down by grade directors and by grade level. And so I'll start actually with for 1st and 2nd grade, we've got a grade director by the name of Ryan Engelbert. And so I'm very thankful that that Ryan has joined our board to be a grade director for first and second grade. For those who don't know Ryan, he actually is the founder and owner of ETS Performance, where maybe some of your kids have done some work with him in the past, and some workouts with him in the past. But Ryan has a long track record and current track record of working with football players at the youth, middle school, high school, and even professional level. And I like to use Ryan as an example of somebody that's phenomenal, that he has all of that football experience and knowledge, and it's great that he can kind of help pass that on to our program. But in reality, I think whether it's Ryan or the other folks on our board, it's a culture fit. He's his goal, and is the goal of the other folks on our board, is again to make sure that the kids are having a good experience. We set up the coaches for success in order to have your kids and your families have the best opportunity to have a good experience with River Falls youth football. For third and fourth grade, we have Dan Trikel, who's the grade director. So those that don't know Dan, he has coached youth football for a number of years. He was actually a grade director for first and second grade last year, and he's got two boys. He's got a daughter as well, but two boys in the program. His oldest is going into fifth grade, and then his other son is going into third grade. And so he is, I would say, if you are a coach and you're listening in on this parent call in your third and fourth grade, Dan is a phenomenal resource for you at practices or games to ask questions, to be able to go to. Same thing with parents, really approachable, good guy. For fifth and sixth grade, we have Chad Visger. And so Chad was actually the grade director last year for fifth and sixth grade as well too. Chad gives a ton of time and energy to the River Falls community, whether it's baseball or football, or I believe even coaching basketball as well too. But again, Chad, really approachable, good guy, very experienced as well from a youth football coaching standpoint. So always feel free to approach really any of these grade directors, any of the board members, even if they're not technically in your child's grade level. And then we have a new position this year. So Jason Frederickson is actually what we're calling Director of Operations. So there's a lot of moving parts with football between the practices and the games. And so Jason is the kind of the operations point person to make sure that the coach bins, that the team bins and coach bins that we set up for the team are set up appropriately. Everybody has everything that they need, that we're setting up the fields either for practices or for games the right way. And just really kind of that glue to kind of help keep everything together operationally within the program. Also, we decided because of COVID-19, we needed to have a centralized point of contact. So both for coaches and parents, if there's any questions or anything that comes up concerning COVID-19, Jason Frederickson is the point person for that. So I will, as a follow-up to last night and tonight's parent meetings, share Jason's contact information to all of you, just like I did with the coaches. And then last but not least, we have Rissa Wojcik. Rissa oversees our finances for our nonprofit, and she makes sure that we stay in the black. And to that point, the investment that you're making in River Falls youth football to have you kids play, obviously it's we're looking at it to make sure that the kids are having a good experience, working our tails off to try our best to make that happen. But also there's obviously costs that go into the uniforms and t-shirts and flags and equipment, all of those things. And then the costs that go to, especially this year, some of the things we're doing for COVID-19. But I think even more importantly than just covering those costs, your investment in the program is helping us give back to the River Falls community. So those dollars that we set aside go to not only the River Falls high school and middle school football programs, it goes to the River Falls Athletic Boosters, it goes college scholarships, Sunshine Fund, kind of go on down the list. Our whole goal is to take the money, take the resources that you're providing our nonprofit and give it back to the community. So, again, thank you for your investment in us. So I'm going to jump into, what's this year going to look like from a schedule standpoint. In past years, we had always done 2 practices. So every team practiced Tuesdays and Thursdays. This year, because of COVID-19 and the number of kids that have come out to play flag football, we wanted to make sure we could space out the kids. And so this year we're actually going to just do practices one time a week. So if you have a child that's in first or second grade, they're always going to practice on Tuesday nights at 6 o'clock from 6 to 7. If you have a child that's in third or fourth grade, those practices are always going to be at 6 o'clock on Thursday nights. For the 5th and 6th grade kids, we have a bigger field space that we have set aside for the 5th and 6th graders. In addition, there's a higher number of kids, 5th and 6th graders that traditionally have come out for flag football. So we are actually splitting up those teams between Tuesdays and Thursdays. So there's going to be 8 teams. And so if you're a 5th or 6th grader and you're team 1 through 4, you'll have practice on Tuesday nights. If you're a 5th and 6th grader and team 5 through 8, you have practice on Thursday nights at 6 o'clock. And I'll cover the map as well too, so you see what that looks like. Let's see here. So we look at the games themselves. We're actually, in past years, we had 6 games. This year, we had to reduce it down to 4 games that the kids are able to play. And really, just to be extremely transparent, the reason for that, we had a really condensed registration season. So a lot of that had to do, of course, with we wanted to hold out as long as we could before we made a decision on how we were going to have a season, or if we're even going to have a season, because we wanted to wait to hear back either from the state of Wisconsin, the county, the city, or even the school district itself, to make sure we actually had a field for the kids to play on. And so because we've been holding out as long as we could, that meant that our season is getting started a little bit later than it normally would. So the games are starting September 19th. They're always going to be on Saturdays. And then the last game is going to be October 10th. We also broke it up differently this year too. Again, the whole point is to have smaller numbers of teams and kids that are on the game field and at the same time. So 1st and 2nd graders, every Saturday you're going to play at 10 a.m. 3rd and 4th graders, you're always going to play at 11:15 a.m. And then the 5th and 6th graders, you're always going to play at 12:30. And so again, a good way to kind of just separate bodies and families and things of that nature. The next thing, and you may have seen this, or hopefully you saw this in one of the last email communications that came out from youth football, but we have decided, we made the hard decision just this past weekend to not have a combine night. So for those that aren't familiar with it, what the combine night was and has been traditionally is we've had, for the first 2 and sometimes even 3 practices, we've had the kids by grade level go to 5 different stations and basically be measured on different skills, whether it's speed or catching or throwing or kind of going down the list. And so it was a way that we like to kind of get a baseline of how confident kids are in football, how experienced they are, some of those things. I hate to ever use the word grading, especially when you talk about like a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old, but it was more just to kind of get a temperature on how we should set up the teams. From there, for any of those that have ever tried to set up youth football teams or teams in general, it has taken hours to try to set up the teams to get as fair as possible. Again, just to do our best to have competitive games when we get to game situations. So with all of that as the backdrop, this year we looked at the number of kids that are coming out at all grade levels, and it's nearly going to match last year's numbers. And last year's numbers, we had a record number of kids with 265 kids. So as we started kind of thinking through the logistics, how would we do this combine night when people won't know where to go, even when we have 5 stations? We started kind of thinking through, there's going to be anywhere from 13 to 20 kids for every one of these stations. And in a good year, that's a really big challenge for the coaches and all the volunteers that they're helping out with combine night. So what we're going to wind up doing, and what you can expect from us, is the grade directors and I are going to this weekend put together the teams and put them together based on last year's measurements that we have. We'll do our best to make the teams kind of built out from there. Again, which may not be perfect one way or the other, but, you know, I think the important thing to remember, and this is something I just, you know, I thought I would share with everybody is, you know, I look at 2020, I look at two words are really important. Well, in the big, with everything that's going on in 2020, there's two words that are important, but specifically with River Falls youth football, I think, yeah, there's these two words that we need to focus on this year, are patience and grace, and in having patience with each other, with everything that's going on, and giving grace to each other, that things aren't going to be perfect. And this is a prime example because my 4-year-old was in my office during this call and started making noise. So I'm trying to have patience and give a little grace to not go on mute and yell at her. So again, that's our focus this year. The same thing with the coaches, refs, everybody. I mean, I really look at 2020, this youth football season, as a gift that we're able to do this. It's an opportunity. We didn't know over the last several months, weeks, if we were going to be able to watch our kids play football, have our kids have some normalcy back, you know, in their lives to be able to do this. And thankfully we are able to do it. So I think let's approach it the right way. And I think it'll be a great season for everybody involved. If we go into September, that really starts to get into that's when the practices start. So next Tuesday, again, if you're first and second grade, or if you're on team 1 through 4, grade 5 and 6, that's going to be your first practice. On Sunday, the 30th, you're going to get an email from River Falls Youth Football, and it'll show what the team is and who the coaches are. And so we also will note on there where in the field, the practice field, you'll need to meet for practice, not only that first practice, but also every practice moving forward. Games are going to wrap up, like I said, October 10th. We are going to hopefully have a coach appreciation event after that, like we normally do, but we'll kind of see how everything lines up from that perspective. Any questions before I kind of get into the heart of what we're doing for COVID mitigation? Check the chat. Nothing in chat. Great. Okay, I'll keep on rolling here then. So, you know, we have three buckets of how we're looking at COVID with our upcoming season. And the first bucket is, how do we maximize space? The second one is, how do we minimize physical contact? And number 3, how do we maintain or do our best to have a sanitary environment? So those are the 3 kind of buckets that we are focused on this year. I've already gone into a lot of this, but again, that's why we have the practice schedule set up the way that it is. That's why we have the game schedule set up the way it is, again, to increase the amount of space between practices, players, teams, parents, families, all of that. So in order to minimize physical contact, here are some of the things that we're doing. So we're going to request teams not to line up and do a handshake after the game. To be honest, I just thinking of some of the maybe first and second grades that are like sucking on their glove, and then they give another kid a high five through the handshake line. That always kind of grossed me out anyway. So at least we don't have to worry about that. But I think there is some things we can do on that front, though, still to keep the sportsmanship up and still have that camaraderie. So we're going to work with the grade recs are going to work with the coaches on some things we can do on that front. Likely we'll, for sure we'll have the teams for game days on 2 separate sides of the field. And then maybe there's something we can do where, kind of facing each other and kind of from a distance and be able to say good game that way. We also requesting teams not to break down in a tight huddle. Again, please have patience if that, organically does happen. But again, we're requesting not to have a tight huddle, to have the teams break down, maybe put their hands in, but not actually touch. We're urging huddles in the field to be spaced out as much as possible. Even in a normal year, it's kind of sometimes hard to kind of wrangle in the kids around the field and make sure they understand what play has been called and who needs to do what. So again, have some patience with that, and I know the coaches will do their best to still follow some of these guidelines. And then we're also requesting players to space out on the sidelines. And so very, very thankful that many parents, actually even folks that don't have kids in the program have stepped up to volunteer to help coach this year. So we were at a point where it was going to be very difficult to get at least 2 coaches on each team. But at this point, we absolutely, for every grade level, every team, there will be 2, if not 3 coaches for every team. So I want to thank all of you out there that are helping on that front. And one of the nice things about having 2 or 3 coaches is one of those coaches can kind of keep their eye on the sidelines to make sure that the kids are spacing out. But I would say you as a parent, a good opportunity to offer your help to the coach and say, hey, do you want me to help, make sure that the kids are spacing on the sidelines. And the other piece that I have here is we are urging families not to attend practices. With that said, absolutely understand you want to drop off your player, your son or your daughter at their practice field, especially those first couple weeks, to make sure they know where to go, make sure that they're not lost. Absolutely do that. But what our ask is then after you drop them off for practice to go back to your car or go back home for a little bit before the end of practice and do things that way. Again, the whole idea is to just kind of space things out quite a bit there. And then we're also urging families to really minimize attendance to the games to immediate family. Obviously, there's lots of grandparents or aunts, uncles, or cousins that don't want to see games too. And I would just, again, urge, whatever we can do to kind of minimize the number of folks that are watching the games. I think that would be ideal as well too. The hygienic focus, we have hooked up the coaches and the coach bens with quite a few things to make sure that they're taken care of on that front. So in every one of the team coach bens, we are including a sanitizer. And so we're asking the coaches, again, to sanitize the balls, the flags, the cones, before and after practices and before and after games. We also are providing hand sanitizer in the bins for each team. As part of a request from River Falls School District, we are requiring coaches to take attendance for every single practice and every single game, and to verify again that none of the kids are sick or have any signs of illness before the practice or games. We'll continue to communicate throughout the season to players, families, coaches, refs, really anybody that's going to be coming out to practices and games. If you have any sign of illness, you have a fever, other signs, please don't come. Let's be smart and not do that. We'll have one of the follow-up items that we'll be sharing after the parent meeting is, again, some of the guidelines for that and what to look for. And if you're wondering, we literally are mirroring what the school district is doing. So if you have questions, it's literally the same communication that came from the school district related to COVID-19. The other piece here, this year, we're going to have a flag belt that the kids are going to use for every practice and every game. In past years, kids had flags that they're using. They're maybe a little more beat up for practice, and then they had their game flags that they kept. This year, we actually have been working with a small company out of Austin, Texas that makes custom flag football belts that are a lot higher quality and in reality a lot easier for kids or adults to be able to put on. And so long story short, those are going to be a lot more durable. And so we're going to use those flags for both practices and games. And so the very first practice next week, so whether Tuesday or Thursday is your first practice, we're asking the parents and your families to show up at 5:45 and the coaches to be there at that time as well, because that's when the coaches are going to take out all the flag belts from their bins and get the flag belts on the kids and make sure that they fit appropriately, and any excess materials either cut off or taped up. So from that point on, that will always be their flag belt. We're providing a permanent marker, so the coach is going to write the kid's name on the belt itself. So then every practice, every game, the belt is in the coach bin. They have it, and so that's one less thing you have to worry about bringing from home. We also are not going to have any concession stands this year for obvious reasons. We're going to provide 20 disposable masks to every one of the coach bins. At this point, there is not a requirement to have kids or coaches wear a mask during practices or games. Same thing goes for school. When the kids are outside for recess, they don't need to wear masks there either, because we're playing outside, because of all the other decisions we've made to, again, try to minimize touching, try to maximize distancing. Again, we have not been asked to have the kids wear masks. With that said, as we know, everything is fluid and that could change. So just obviously be aware of that. Last but not least, I had mentioned Jason Frederickson is the COVID lead from the River Falls Youth Football Board. So I will share his information. Again, anything that comes up COVID related, you can absolutely reach out to him, and of course myself. The last piece here, when we're talking about minimizing exposure to COVID-19, this is what I call like the depressing slide. These are all the things that we had to say no to, where we slimmed down our season in order to really just be as smart as we could and still allow the kids to play ball. So we didn't have a youth Coach Crail Wildcats youth football night or youth football camp. We're not going to have a combine, like I had mentioned. We're not going to do a picture day this year. We're not going to have the kids play or scrimmage at halftime at the first varsity home game. And then it's a real bummer, but we also the kids aren't going to be able to do a practice night with the Falcons. I know that's always been a favorite for a lot of the kids, to be able to go with Coach Walker's team and be able to play on the practice with the big college kids. Last year, for the first time, we did a pass, punt, and kick contest. That was a lot of fun. A lot of good feedback. Kids had a blast. Again, this year, we won't do that. Looking to do that next year, though. Thursday night under the lights, that was something, again, we started last year. It was a tradition we were going to start, and looking to do that next year. But basically, we went up to the brand new field turf at the high school. The kids, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, got to play literally at night under the lights, and I know it was a really fun experience for the kids. And then last but not least, we are going to cut down our year-end celebration this year as well too. So before I get into some of the maps and some of the, let me see here. Let me see some of the maps and some of the other pieces. If there's any other questions, feel free to ask them. I'm just looking at chat here, see if there's anything that has come up. So I think there's a question here about how long are the practices. So the practices are 1 hour. So they're always going to be 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So with that being said, next week the very first practice will be 5:45 to 7 o'clock. And the reason we're doing that is, that gives that 10-15 minutes, that first practice, to get the belts on the kids, to be able to get the introductions done, and then have a full hour of practice. Especially because this year, obviously with only having one practice week, there's gonna be less practices for the kids. So it sounds like there is a kind of a question or a comment about wearing masks. If you are more comfortable with your kid wearing a mask, absolutely, wear a mask. Just know that there's not been a push or a requirement from the school district for us to do that, especially with kind of the spacing that we're doing here. Let's see here. So let's look at the map. So for Tuesday night, when you get the email on Sunday, we'll list your player's coach and your team number. I also will provide this map. And so this is where you're going to go for every single practice. So if you're on team 1 for grade 5 and 6, if you're walking away from that football shed, see where that star is, or you're walking kind of away from Meyer Middle School to that far right corner, kind of that, I guess would be southeastern corner, that is where you're going to meet for every single practice. If you're a first and second grader, you're in team 1, you're going to go to that kind of far left-hand quadrant. And that's, again, we're going to go for every single practice. The first practice week, Jason, myself, and the grade directors are actually going to set up the field to have the coach bins and team bins all laid out for the coaches by where the practice spot is, as well as have the team signs out. So unless a team sign goes missing here or there should be team signs for every single team, and the bins all ready to roll when you get there. On Thursday, again, 3rd and 4th is always going to practice on Thursdays. Same thing goes. So if you're a team 1 for grades 3rd and 4th, you're going to go to that kind of top left-hand quadrant, kind of that northeastern corner. If you're team 5 for grade 5 and 6, you're going to go to that southeastern quadrant to the top right there. And again, you know, we're in past years, we've done kind of a kickoff. We get the kids all grouped together and kind of do a breakout. We're not, for obvious reasons, not going to do that. And so you go directly to your team. All right, I'll keep on going here. And then for the game map, so the schedule will be coming out shortly as well too. For 5th and 6th graders, the 5th and 6th grade games are always going to be played on game field 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, you know, again, kind of those practice fields where they typically are on, and that's, just keep that in mind. 1st and 2nd, 3rd and 4th, both of those grade levels are always going to play on game field 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so again, they're the same fields that the kids, or roughly the same area where the kids kind of practice for those grade groups, and that's where the games are always going to be as well too. The last thing I was going to say as we kind of transition to the next part of this is, you know, note that we spend quite a bit of time building out coach resources, you know, whether it's you know, sample practice plans, you know, drills that the kids can work on in practice, playbooks that are specific to River Falls youth football to have that kind of level of consistency. So all of those materials actually are on the River Falls football website. And I want to offer, you know, as a parent, if that's something you'd be interested in downloading the coach resource book with some of the drills and some things like that maybe you want to do at home for fun with your kids, or kids and friends, more than welcome to be able to do that. So just kind of keep that in mind as well too. And I also wanted to share kind of what had been covered at the coaches meeting, or part of what had been covered at the coaches meetings earlier this week. And again, I think it's reminding, you know, the coaches and really all of us that the point and the goal of River Falls youth football is to help the kids realize a passion for the game of football, enhance their knowledge and skills, and have fun in the process. There's also an expectation from the coaches to have strong positive leadership and really, you know, be the example for their team, and honestly for the families and other teams that are near them. And really, I think that doesn't have to stop with the coaches. I think that goes to all the families and the parents as well too, and setting that right expectation with the kids of why are we doing this, and how do we act when we're there. I look at the bottom there, you see the 3 rules, or the 3 big rules, I like to call them. So whether I've kind of coached my own teams over the years, or coached with other folks, we've had the big 3, which are making sure the kids show respect, making sure the kids are playing hard, and then making sure they're having fun. But in reality, it all starts with the show respect part. And so talk to the coaches about that, and really want you to reinforce that at home too, that you know, kids, whether you're a 1st grader or a 6th grader, that you're showing respect to your coach, you're listening to them, you're engaged, you're showing respect to your teammates and building them up in a positive teammate. And the same thing goes for in games, that you're showing respect to the ref, to the other team. And again, just doing those right things, kind of the next right thing there. And everything else, whether it's playing hard and having fun, seems to always kind of typically fall into place. Any questions before I do an overview of the handbook that I'm going to email out to everybody? All right, we'll keep going here. So we have a player and parent handbook that it's probably 20 some pages long. And so I decided not to go dryly through every single page of that, but instead I'll share that as a follow-up to this meeting. So you do have that. And by the way, it is on the website as well too. So that's a nice transition in that parent book. One of the things that I share in there is the fact that all of your communication resources. So I would highly, highly encourage you to always keep your eyes open on your email. But if there's a question, we also try to, or something you need, or you don't know where a field is, we try to have as much as we can on the riverfallsfootball.com website, and try to have as much as we can actually just on that homepage. So it's easy for you to get information on your own. If you haven't already, you know, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, actually even YouTube now. because again, other places to find information and resources. The other aspect of that too is communication is key. So look for communication from youth football. Absolutely look for communication from your child's coach. But I would also put that back on the parents too. So proactively reach out to the coaches that are coaching your kids' team. Introduce yourself. Make sure that they know who you are, who your kid is, if you don't know them. And I think it's a two-way street to make sure that it is a good experience, and that that there is that kind of open chain of communication there. As far as expectations going into the season in a regular year, we'd be saying things like be positive and encourage your athletes, and promote having fun, and again, making sure that kids are respecting the experience and those around them. On a good year, we're focused on that. But if we look at 2020 and what we're juggling with the global pandemic, I would just kind of ratchet that up probably about another 50 points or so, because at the end of the day, let's try our best to do the right thing and help each other out, and again, just have fun watching the kids play ball. At a high level, I'm also going to go over the kind of the format, for some of those that are new to our program, as well as those that maybe aren't new, but there's a few tweaks that we've made, and I just want to make sure you as parents are aware of it. So again, it's more enjoyable experience for you and your families. So in the past, for first and second grade and third and fourth grade, we actually fit 3 different game fields onto one regular football field. And as you can see, what we're doing this year, we're actually going to fit 2 game fields onto the football field. And so the reason for that, again, goes to wanting to space out players, kids, families, all of that. And so we have more than enough space to be able to have 2 games going on smoothly on one field. And how it's set up is we go sideline to sideline for first and second and third and fourth. So we see that no run zone, yellow no run zone at the bottom. The team in offense will start at the 5-yard line, which is at the top of that yellow no run zone. And then the team has 4 downs to get to the midfield marker to get a first down. Now, once they get past the first down marker, they have 4 downs to try to get a touchdown. The no run zone, that's a topic that we've kind of juggled with back and forth quite a bit over the last couple of years. But really the reasoning behind that, and what we're looking to do is, if let's say it is 4th down and 1, and the team is just short of that first down marker at the half field point there, if that's where the line of scrimmage is and it's 4th down and 1, then there's no running. Then the offense has to throw the ball. The reason why we do that is it's very easily, if there's an aggressive kid that can take a handoff that's supposed to be a sweep, and then turns that sweep play is supposed to go outside, and that turns into a straight ahead dive play where that kid's driving straight ahead and putting his or her head down, which obviously could lead to a head-on-head collision. And that's the last thing we want to have happen. So that's kind of the thinking behind the no-run zone. The same thing goes, there's a no-run zone if you're within 5 yards of the end zone. So keep that in mind as well too. Same idea. For 5th and 6th graders, we started this last year and had some very positive feedback from kids and coaches. And so what we're doing is we're actually having 2 games on one football field, but we're taking up, each game is taking up 50 yards. And so if you're familiar with 7-on-7 tournaments or kind of leagues for high school and college level, it's somewhat similar to that, where literally it's the width of an entire football field is the width of your game field, and you're basically starting about 15 yards outside of the 50-yard line. Same thing goes where you're starting 5 yards away from your own end zone. You have 4 downs to get a first down at the midfield marker, and then another 4 downs to be able to get a touchdown. Excuse me, and still have the no run zones taken into account there as well too. So some of the key rules. I'm just going to take a quick peek. Doesn't look like there's any more questions here, but Any more questions anybody wants to bring up before and again, I'm not going to go rule by rule here, but just some of the highlights you need to be aware of. All right, I'll keep going. All right, so some of the key rules, and this is for all grade levels. We already talked about the no run zone, but for the equipment, this is really important. Every kid must have a mouth guard, whether it's practice or games. They also must have non-metal cleats or tennis shoes that they're wearing for games. They need to be wearing their River Falls Wildcats football jersey that they're going to be given, and that needs to be tucked in. So we don't want the top of the flag belts to be kind of hidden. We need to have those shirts tucked in. I don't have it here, but it's actually brought up in the parent call last night. We are not providing shorts this year for a couple different reasons. One of those reasons being the higher costs associated with providing jerseys and shirts, and then the custom higher end flag football belts. It didn't make sense to provide shorts as well too, and keep the cost. So we're going to keep the cost as low as we could. But because we're not providing shorts, that's just something else to keep in mind. Make sure that, especially for games, your kids are wearing shorts that don't have pockets or pants that don't have pockets. And if they have pockets, we're going to be asking the coaches to tape up where those pockets are. And the reason being, again, we don't want a kid going for a flag and getting their finger stuck in somebody's shorts. We also have talked to the coaches about the flag belts at first practice, making sure there's not, like I mentioned before, not excess flag belt that's dangling off, and make sure that we're gonna have scissors that's provided every coach bin to cut off any excess belt, and then tape that up as well too. As far as the games themselves, we try to keep them at about 45 to 50 minutes. And so there's 2 20-minute halves, and the last 2 minutes of the game does stop. So the rest of the game, the 2 20 minutes are a running clock, except for the last 2 minutes, it does stop. The clock does stop for incomplete passes, out of bounds, scores, all of those types of things. Halftime itself is usually only a minute or two. We're trying to, especially the older kids age level, to really impress upon the refs to make sure that the game clock really is 45 seconds to, again, keep a good pace to the games. There's a 1 timeout per half for each team, and then there is ties. So if it's a tie at the end of the game, it's a tie, because again, we have a lot of games that we're looking to kind of work through here, and they need to transition between games. If a player fumbles, the ball is down on that spot. So there should be no monkey pile to try to get a loose ball to try to get a fumble. If any body part touches the ground besides the hand or the foot, that player is down. So if my daughter Anna is running, she slips when she's turning the corner and her knee touches, then she would be down. Doesn't matter, nobody touched her flag. But let's say she slips and puts her hand down and her elbow doesn't touch and her knee doesn't touch, she can keep on going, and they have to get her flag. With the new flag belts, they seem to be very durable, so I hope that they're not going to inadvertently fall off. But a flag does fall off without anybody grabbing it. It's just a one-hand touch from there. And the player is marked down where their body is when the flag is pulled. So sometimes kids will try to reach the ball across to get in the end zone, or reach the ball across to get a first down. It's where the actual body is when the flag is pulled. That's where they're marked. And fourth down, you can punt. So a punt, all that means is the other team is going to start on their own 5-yard line. And poor conduct. So thankfully, we don't run into a whole lot of this, knock on wood, as I say that. But poor conduct is determined by the ref. So that includes, of course, swearing, any type of intentional tackling, trying to kind of that above and beyond actions that aren't in obviously a good spirit of playing flag football the right way. So the other thing I would say in regards to kind of inappropriate play or poor conduct, that is a 15-yard penalty that the ref should be calling. If for some reason the ref doesn't call it, and now this is again where that patience and grace comes in. We have 15, 16, maybe 17-year-old kids that are football players that play for Coach Crail. They're taking their Saturdays to ref youth football. So, again, trying to work with them to have the confidence to make those calls and to be able to do that. But if that doesn't happen, we've talked to the coaches about, that's where you coach your own team, okay? Don't worry about coaching the other team or other kids. You coach your own team. And I'd say the same thing to you parents. So if you see something that your kid did, please step up and take that leadership role and or support the coach. I have an example myself from last year. There was a player that was on our team that is frustrated because he didn't get a flag. And as the ball carrier was going down the sidelines, instead of trying to get the flag, he body checked the offensive player out of bounds and more or less kind of tackled him out of bounds. The ref didn't call it for whatever reason. Myself as the coach and the other coach of the team, he decided he was done. He wasn't playing the rest of the game, even though he was probably one of our better players. And again, it's taking that opportunity to have them learn from that and not do that again. So I'll get off my soapbox on that front, but now going into a little bit of what to expect as far as blitzing and kind of the rules for quarterbacks. So if you're a first and second grade parent, note that the kids are not quarterback in first and second grade. We actually have one of the coaches will be a quarterback when you're on offense. And we do that, again, with the whole goal to try to get every kid the opportunity to catch a ball, to try to get a touchdown. And just we obviously increase our chances if there's a coach quarterback as compared to a kid. But for third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, the kids are going to be a quarterback. And the quarterback can't rush past the line of scrimmage unless they've been blitzed. And so the defense, you can blitz. The ref will put down a blitz marker that's about 7 yards away from the line of scrimmage. And so whether it's one or two players in defense, as long as they're behind that marker, they can blitz when the ball is snapped. Now the quarterback can then scramble and go beyond the line of scrimmage, but only after the defense has crossed the line of scrimmage. So the quarterback can't see them blitzing, then all of a sudden just take off, start running. They have to wait until the defense crosses that line of scrimmage to really truly commit to that it was a blitz. For fifth and sixth graders, each team gets 3 blitzes per half. For third and fourth, each team gets 2 blitzes per half. The other piece of this is for third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, we do allow in the playbook to have play action passes. And so here's the thing, like if it's a handoff, the players can immediately cross the line of scrimmage to try to get the flag of the running back. But if it's a play action pass, that player probably already made that action to cross the line of scrimmage. And we're not counting that a blitz because the offense made that action of a play action pass. And so the offense is giving up its ability to be able to not have people start from 7 yards away to be able to blitz to get to the quarterback. And one of the last things I want to say to this point is no flag guarding. It happens every single practice, every single game. And again, we're working with the refs and the coaches to try to minimize that as much as possible. But sometimes some of the emotions and some of the whatever of the kids comes out because they felt like, oh, I had his flag or her flag and my hand got slapped away. Long story short, no flag guarding includes stiff arms. And so again, reinforce that with your own kids not to do that. And we'll continue to push that as well too. Touchdown is 6 points, extra points. You can get 1 point if you want to go for the extra point from 1 yard away. 2 points is from 10 yards away. Something that's a little different is the safeties. So safeties, it's not counted as safety if the flag gets pulled in the end zone, but instead that it's a loss of down and the next snap is at the 1 yard line. The only exception would be if it's on fourth down. If it's on fourth down and I'm the quarterback and my flag gets pulled in the end zone, then that is a safety, would be awarded 2 points and the defense would get the ball. All right. Last but not least, I have my last slide to kind of talk through some kind of key takeaways. Anybody have any questions that are kind of specific to anything I've talked about yet, or to the rules or the format or anything like that? All right, well, I'll jump into the key takeaways. And like I said at the beginning, covered a ton of information related to rules, COVID-19, scheduling, all sorts of fun stuff. But here are the key things we want to make sure our families and kids take away. The first one is again, what is the purpose? What is the goal? We want the kids to have that spark, get started, for the game of football, have passion, enhance their knowledge or skills. We're not building professional athletes or D1 athletes at this point. Really, it's just kids being able to have fun, just like, maybe as a kid we did, in the backyard throwing the football around. This is just in a more kind of organized format. And of course, have fun. There's always that balance between having fun and showing respect. And that's what we have such an emphasis on respect as well, too. Next thing, watch for email communication. As we know, with COVID-19, there is a lot of moving parts with this, and things evolve pretty quickly. So please always look for communication via email, social media, and look for communication from your coaches. But again, I suggest proactively reach out to your coach, communicate with them, introduce yourself, offer to help. Even if we have 2 to 3 new kids, 2 to 3 coaches for every team, I think as a coach myself, taking all the help I can get. And then the last one, the big 3, show respect, play hard, have fun. If the kids hear that at home, they hear that from the coaches, they hear that from the overall program, I think that's going to lead to a lot of just positive experiences in the big. So anything else you guys have? So this is the last official slide as far as any kind of questions you have. I'm looking in the chat to see if you see anything in here. Yeah, so great question. So that is, and I had missed answering this before when we talked a little bit about COVID. So the question in chat is, what are we going to do to what is a protocol if a player or coach is to test positive? So phenomenal question. This is my 4th meeting of the week, so I kind of sometimes forget what I've said or not said. But that's absolutely why we have the attendance that we're having the coaches take every single practice and every single game. That's why we have Jason and of course myself as contacts, that as soon as that either there's a family member that has tested positive, or maybe the child has COVID or has been exposed to it, let us know, communicate that to Jason, which you'll have you'll have his contact information. Absolutely feel free to reach out to me as well too. From there, we're going to communicate out to that team. We'll know on the attendance sheet who was at that particular game or practice, and be able to communicate and say that there was a player that was on the team that has it or has been exposed to it. And then we're going to, like I said before, we are going to mirror the protocol of the school district of how that's handled as well too. And then the attendance sheets, just a heads up too. So we're asking them not only fill it out, but then they have to actually drop off the attendance sheets at a bin at the football shed after every practice and every game. So again, to make sure that the attendance actually is being taken. All right. So great question. So there's a question about coaches for quarterback for first and second. What happens on a blitz? I was one of those coaches in first and second grade that was the quarterback back when we allowed blitzes in first and second grade. And because of my experience, there's no blitzing in first and second grade. So there's nothing more awkward / demoralizing than being a 30-some-year-old or 40-some-year-old parent being chased around by a 7-year-old that's trying to blitz you and get your flag as you're trying to throw a target that's about that big. That's a first or second grader. So no blitzing for first and second grade. So any of you coaches out there that had to do that back in the day, you're welcome. Let's see if there's any other questions in the chat. I don't see anything. Anybody, just verbally want to have any questions? If not, that's totally fine too. All right, well, on that note, I will give everybody 6 minutes back, probably 5 minutes, because I'm just going to wrap up with one quick thing. Like I said before, number one, thank you for signing up your kids to play youth football this year. Number two, I look at this as a gift, that we have an opportunity to, see our kids have fun again, have some normalcy. But in reality, as adults, as parents, that we have some normalcy in our lives as well too, to be able to get outside and watch a little football, even if it's at the youth level. The other piece of that too, I would say, Again, communicate with your coach. If there's things that they need, if there's things we need as a program, we'll take all the volunteers we can get. All the coaches, myself, all the board members, we're all volunteers. We're, again, just trying to build the program the best we can, especially as the kids kind of evolve through the years. And whether they play football or not in middle school or high school, hopefully they do, but ultimately that's not the goal. Let's just have a lot of fun with this and grow a little bit of knowledge in the meantime. So on that note, I'll let everybody go, and then look for an email coming from me and from the Youth Football Board that's going to be sharing, again, more detail on what the expectations are and protocol are for COVID mitigation, the maps for the practice fields, the maps for the game fields, and then on Sunday you also will see your team, what team your kids will be on. So anyway, on that note, hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Thanks again for joining, and have an awesome weekend. Thanks, everybody.